What's up, people? How you doing? Hey, I think it's just going to be me today. Vince has meetings, but I thought rather than all of us sitting around stressing about today's game, we could sit around and, stress together verbally. So, I don't have any sort of agenda specific stuff to talk about. Obviously, the pitching plan is something to talk about, but I'd love to have you guys shoot over speaker requests and talk with me. This is just, won't be going on the podcast or anything. This is just let's talk Dodgers. So if you want to hop in, shoot me over a request and we will chit chat. Doug Reynolds, have you been in one of these before? I don't remember for sure. I know I interact with you on Twitter all the time, but Ben's here. Yeah, Ben, let's definitely get in. What's up, Justin? Are you muted again, Justin?
Well, the default is always mute, so I gotta unmute it and find out where it is, and then I can get on. But question for you, Jeff.
I think they only default to mute for you, and I think that was a feature request that I requested personally.
That sounds about right. I think that sounds about right. Hey, my question for you, Gabe Kapler seems like he's a little bit of a wild card. He could. Maybe make a trigger decision or something for better or for worse. We saw how he struggled in Philadelphia, but yet he's had incredible success this year with the Giants. And, part of that you could say, he's probably made more, or better moves than not. And the Giants are a good team. But tonight, what do you think would take Gabe deciding that, he needs to pull the trigger on Webb and say, hey, we're going to put in somebody else? Like, at what point in the game are you thinking, like, okay, if the Giants go down a run or two by this inning, or if the Dodgers are threatening and this is the situation, is there kind of like a general idea where you see that happening? And if so, is that really kind of the best scenario for the Dodgers? Or, do you think the Dodgers will be able to, scratch across a few and hopefully hold the Giants at bay?
Yeah, I assume that Kapler will base it on how Webb looks. If he's pitching like he did in Game 1, I think they ride him as far as they can. But Kapler's already talked about, Gossman being available, basically everybody being available, all their starters and everything, even in relief. And so, if Webb – I talked about this with Mark Simon on this morning's podcast, that Webb overall actually has a pretty stark drop-off in performance from the first time through the order to the second time through the order, and a pretty stark drop-off in performance as his pitch count gets higher, like 76 pitches and up, and those are arbitrary numbers. I always take those kind of things with a grain of salt because, on the radio, Rick Monday always brings up pitches 46 through 60. He does, and it's like, okay, there's nothing magical about that 46th pitch. It's just, the law of round numbers, easy way to group things together. But Webb does overall struggle more in the second time through the lineup, and as his pitch count gets up, that obviously wasn't the case in Game 1. But I'm positive that Kapler is aware of that. I think Kapler's struggles in Philadelphia had more to do with the Phillies than with Kapler. I think he's a pretty good manager. And so he's going to be aware of all that stuff and just kind of, that's where you take the analytics and the eye test and they go together. And that's, people who make it an either or thing are missing the point because, that Kapler did a really good job in Game 1 of saying, Logan Webb, despite this stuff that I know about him second time through the order and higher pitch count and stuff, he's dominating. So let's leave him in. And I assume that he'll take the same approach here. And if he's seeing signs, okay, the Dodgers are getting better at bats, he's not missing as many bats as he did in Game 1, then they are going to more default to that, some of that stuff, get him out earlier, since they do have basically everybody available. They're going to do whatever they think gives them the best chance to win. And if Webb isn't completely dominating, then they might decide that pulling Webb would be the thing that gives them the best chance to win. As for whether that's the best case scenario for the Dodgers, I don't know, because I really the Dodgers offense needs to show up. They need to not chase pitches. Ben and I actually, funny, Ben Kaspick is in here from Locked On Giants. He and I both today, I was looking at the description. I haven't listened to his show today yet, but looking at the description, sounds like we had basically the same show today, talking about what role Doug Eddings might play and what to expect from Logan Webb. And I hate the fact that the home plate umpire might be a part of the story tonight. But Doug Eddings has the biggest strike zone in baseball. And that definitely could work in Webb's favor. But, one point that Mark made on the podcast with me, or maybe just talking to me, is that a big strike zone can go either way. In some ways, it just gets people swinging the bat. And, when you swing the bat, sometimes you hit the ball and have more balls in play and score more runs, get more offense going. And so overall, in games umpired by Doug Eddings this year, the strikeout to walk ratio was way higher than the league average. But the overall ERA was actually pretty similar because it can have either effect. And so, even if Webb is getting calls off the plate, he has to still hit those spots. And if he misses spots, pitchers miss spots sometimes, and Dodgers just need to take advantage of any mistakes there. So, what's up, Doug?
Hey, Jeff. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm driving to an appointment. Got a couple minutes here. I'm curious. I always like getting your take. If you could draft up the lineup for tonight, how would you do it and why?
Like you're talking actual batting order?
Batting order, but I guess defensive positioning as well, too. I mean, we got a couple different options with Bellinger in a few different spots, and then Lux made those comments about sounds like he kind of prefers left field, but they got a weird outfield there in San Francisco and everything. So
he said he prefers center field.
Center. I mean, yeah.
Vince and I talked the other day about how maybe you want to go with Bellinger in center or Taylor just because they are more familiar with playing center field, and because center field at Oracle Park is kind of funky and unique. But Lux might be the fastest of the three, and so what he lacks in experience, he might make up for in speed, and if he really does get better reads there, maybe Lux might be just as good in center as either of the other two. And so then it comes down to really it has to be Bellinger at first unless they decide to sit Justin Turner. And I don't see them sitting Justin Turner in a winner-take-all postseason game based on his postseason history, his history against Logan Webb. He actually has the best batting average against Webb of anybody on the Dodgers in his career. And, some of that came before this year, but he still had a decent year against him this year before game one of this series. And so it seems to me like you go, Belly at first, Turner at second, Seager at short, Turner at third, and then probably Taylor in left, Lux in center, and Mookie in right. It's pretty boring. It's basically the same thing they did last game, but last game turned out pretty well for the Dodgers, and I think you definitely have to have Lux's bat in there. So I was glad to see that Dave Roberts said he'd be starting because Lux is hitting the ball. Against Logan Webb, it's going to be tough. And so you can't really afford to give away any outs. And so it's really going to come down to the guys in the lineup having the right approach, and it's easy for us on the couch to talk about approach and whatever. But, I think back to that at bat of Cody Bellinger swinging and missing it 3 straight changeups in the dirt from Webb. And it's like, it's that is an approach thing. Obviously Logan Webb is hard for everybody to hit, but at some point you got to say, okay, next time he throws a changeup in the dirt, I'm going to not swing. And that's what we're going to have to see tonight if the Dodgers can do a little bit better in that regard of not swinging pitches outside the zone. And then that brings us full circle back to Doug Eddings going to call pitches outside the zone. So, yeah.
Did you notice it looked like Bellinger when he got 2 strikes, he kind of sneakily choked up on the bat there in game 4. Did you notice that?
I did see that, and I actually noticed even before that even his starting point was choked up, more than I've seen him in the past, at least more than I've noticed in the past. And I don't know if that's a brand new thing or a recent thing or what, but yeah, even starting, Corey Seager always chokes up, a good 2 inches on the bat, and Bellinger maybe wasn't quite at Seager levels, but he was choked up to start with, and then choked up even more with 2 strikes. And so, it's he got 2 hits. He definitely isn't, Cody Bellinger isn't the automatic out that he was for a lot of this season. And so, we'll see if that changes with Logan Webb pitching. But overall, Bellinger, even when he struggles, he usually has a pretty decent eye, especially on the low pitches. He sometimes has trouble laying off the high pitches, but it was actually surprising to see him chase those 3 pitches from Webb in game 1, because he does usually make guys come into the strike zone, at least at the bottom part of the zone.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think Lux is uncomfortable in the outfield no matter what position he's in. So if he's slightly less uncomfortable in center, I would put him there. I watched him during batting practice when I went to Denver a few weeks ago, and he was out in left field, and he just was so unsure of, do I run in on this thing? What am I doing here? So if he's slightly more comfortable in center, I say put him there. Gives us a better chance, I think, on seeing the reads a bit.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that they haven't even apparently played with the idea of Trey Turner in the outfield, because he did play some outfield earlier in his career. It's been 5 years since he's played, but he used to play some center field. And, I've been a little surprised that they didn't have Trey at least taking some fly balls, and seeing about, just put Lux back at second base and move Trey to the outfield. But, whether that's maybe they talked to Trey and he's not comfortable with that, or they have other reasons, I don't know. But, I think Lux has the athleticism. I remember I went back in 2014, my son and I went to game 1 of the ALDS between the Angels and the Royals. We had driven down to go to game 1 of the NLDS, which was the next day. And so we're like, well, we're here. Let's go to the Angels and Royals. And I remember seeing Terrence Gore in the outfield taking some fly balls before that game. And Terrence Gore, you would think, he's one of the fastest guys in baseball, ridiculous athlete. And he was the worst outfielder I've ever seen at any age level above about 12 years old. It was ridiculous. And you would think athleticism is enough. You should be able to, if you're fast and everything, you should be able to play the outfield. And it's not always the case. But Lux seems like he's getting things figured out. And if he is really more comfortable in center field, I think that's probably a good approach. Who else wants to talk? Shoot me a speaker request. Chase. What's up, Chase? How you doing? How's Fresno?
Oh, it's the Central Valley. It is what it is. So I have a couple things. First, I'm still trying to process the whole Corey Knebel opener thing, but I think if it allows the Dodgers to now have the Giants start their lineup with lefties instead of righties, so they can't stack the lineup. Then you go to Urias later, so the second time through the order, now they have to burn those lefties and possibly use righties. So I get the strategy. I just wish they would have started them like they did in game 2, just because it went so well. But I get it. And then the second thing, I'm curious where they're going to play Lux tonight, because I know he's going to be in the lineup. I'm curious if he's going to be in left or center. I think you put him in left with Taylor in center and Belly at first. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, where they will start Lux, I assume center field, because he started in center field last game, and then after the game, he specifically said he's more comfortable in center field. So it seems like that's the likely thing. As for the opener with Knebel, I'd be shocked if Gabe Kapler doesn't just go out with his righty heavy lineup. Even with I don't think they're going to start Lamont Wade over, whoever else. Sorry, Ben, I don't remember all the guys on your team. But, they're not going to start Lamont Wade just because it's a right-handed pitcher starting and then take him out when Julio comes in. I think they're just going to stick with their righty-heavy lineup for the first time through the order with, Knebel. And then I said on Twitter, I wouldn't be surprised if Brusdar Graterol follows up after Knebel, and they go with 2 openers before they go to Julio, basically get through most of the first time through the lineup, and then bring Julio in to face, starting with the 7 or 8 hitter, hopefully in the third inning. I don't think that Kapler's going to adjust his lineup based on the opener. So what it does instead is it gives you Knebel and maybe Graterol, hey, here are innings for you to work where you do get more of the platoon advantage, where you don't have to worry about, they're going to bring Lamont Wade off the bench now to face this guy or whatever. So it forces Kapler's hand in the other direction. Because Kapler is pretty aggressive on subbing guys out and stuff, and this kind of prevents him from doing that because he's not gonna start Lamont Wade knowing, okay, I'm going to pull him out after 1 at bat, because if you're only going to get 1 at bat from Lamont Wade, you want to be able to pick and choose when it is. You want it to be when there's guys on base or whatever, so that he can do his Lamont Wade devil magic. I think we'll see the same lineup we would have seen with Julio, at least for the most part. So
you think they'll start with, I think the lineup was something like Ruff, Slater, Posey, Bryant, or something like that to start. So you think that's how it'll probably end up going?
They might bump Brandon Crawford up in the lineup a little bit, just to, I don't think they'll change who's in the lineup. They may change the order a little bit, bump Crawford up just to make sure that he bats in the first inning or whatever. But other than that, I think it'll be pretty close to what we saw against Julio last time. So, what's up, Joe Holt?
I was wondering what you thought about maybe breaking up Lux and Bellinger in the lineup, put a right-hander in between them to help a little bit when the left-hand pitcher comes in.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that, and I would guess they'll break up Lux and Bellinger, even if not for that reason, just because I think they'll probably move Lux up in the lineup a little bit.
I was thinking he should bat 5th and maybe drop JT to 6th. I think that's not a bad idea. I expect Lux to be higher in the lineup than he's been, and as long as they're moving things around, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they do put a righty between Lux and Bellinger. I think it's a good idea.
I think so too.
So I'm looking at the lineup from the Giants Game 2 lineup, and so they had Ruff, Bryant, Slater, Posey, Flores, Crawford, Longoria, and Solano in Game 2 against Urias. So, like you said, I think maybe they probably will bump up Crawford up a bit. But maybe it won't change that much. And honestly, if that's the lineup, I feel good about Knebel being able to take care of business for at least an inning, maybe an inning and a third. And then you bring in Graterol, let him get a few outs, and then maybe you bring in Urias in the third. I mean, it wouldn't be if it works out, it's really good strategy-wise because you get more innings out of Julio. But if the offense doesn't score in the first couple innings, then you're playing a dangerous game. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. But I'm still going to be watching the game with the exact optimism I do every day in my Kershaw jersey. So,
yep. Yeah, I just brought in Ben Kaspick. He's the host of Locked On Giants. And, Ben, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you expect from this Giants lineup and what Kapler's going to do.
Yeah, first of all, I don't like the move from the Giants' perspective. I think it's a smart move by the Dodgers because like you said, they kind of are forced to go with that same lineup, basically the same players, maybe a different order that they went with in Game 2. But then the Dodgers can just keep throwing in right-handed relievers as long as those righties are in there. And, maybe it's a given that Urias will come in at some point, but maybe it's not. I don't quite know from the Dodgers' perspective. But at the very least, like you said, the Dodgers can probably get through the order at least once facing almost exclusively right-handed hitters with right-handed pitchers. And that's kind of exactly the opposite of how the Giants like to play. And so I think it's a smart move, and I'm going to be very interested to see what that lineup will be, to see if there's any other lefties in there besides Crawford, because in game 2 it was only Brandon Crawford in the whole lineup who was left-handed.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because especially if the Dodgers can get a lead, if the Dodgers can score a run or two off Webb, and then they could really force the Giants' hand of saying, all right, we got through the lineup one time. Guess what? It's not Julio. It's Blake Trinan coming in,
Right.
Yeah, they could just keep on going and then kind of force Kapler to find, okay, fine. Lamont, wait, you're hitting, and then say, okay, well, then we'll go with Alex Vesia,
right.
And it'll be interesting to see what they do with Julio, because, that's one of the benefits of Julio, even though this year every one of his games was a start. Last year he pitched out of the bullpen a lot. He pitched multi-innings. He did, came in after an opener. He has experience in all these roles. And when you're on the road, you don't really know exactly what, like when you're at home, okay, at 7:10 p.m., I'm throwing my first pitch. When you're on the road, okay, sometime between 7:18 and, 7:30, I'm going to be throwing. So there's enough of a, you can't be too rigid anyway. And so I think if they tell Julio, okay, all you need to know is you're going to start an inning, and so we'll let you know when you need to start getting warm. But yeah, they could just kind of keep on rolling out those righties if it's working. And, hey, Julio, your start, quote unquote, start today is going to be pitching innings 5 through 9, and it definitely, it's one of those moves where it can give the appearance of you're thinking too hard about this, Dave Roberts, but when you know that the other guy's thinking pretty hard too, it really is. I think this, like you said, Ben, is very much personal attack on Gabe Kapler. This is, what are you going to do now, Gabe?
Right, because that is how they had so much success. It has everything to do with, if you just look at that game 2 lineup, I know it didn't work for the Giants. They didn't really get anything going against Urias in that game, or just that game in general. But I thought that lineup was pretty loaded and, about as good of a lineup as they could throw out there against Urias. And they were basically probably going to go with pretty much the exact same lineup tonight. And I spent a lot of my show today talking about how I thought they had a pretty good shot to score some runs with that lineup against a left-handed pitcher. But now, that lineup against some of the nastiest right-handed relievers in the game is a completely different story. And so it may force them to do something that they don't want to do and go out of their little kind of comfort zone that's helped them win 109 games so far this year. But yeah, I just think it's smart. It reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff we saw the Brewers doing in the championship series against the Dodgers in 2018. They started somebody and then took him out after one batter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that helped the Brewers be competitive in that series, going up against, maybe having a little bit of a talent deficit, but they played the Dodgers tough by making these types of moves.
Yeah, and that move by Craig Counsell made Manny Machado so mad he kicked Jesus Aguilar in the leg. Man, so many ramifications of this opener strategy. So, yeah, it's crazy. I don't think any of us woke up. We kind of all been expecting, all right, Webb against Julio, and let's go get him. And it changes things, and it's something that the Giants can't really counter with anything similar on their own. Partly because Webb is who they want on the mound, and partly because the Dodgers lineup isn't actually going to be that much different based on, it's kind of funny, to Dodger fans, you might not appreciate how funny this has been, but it's kind of funny to Dodger fans that the Dodgers are the ones who aren't the platoon heavy team in this matchup, because Dodger fans have spent the last 5 or 6 years complaining about how much the Dodgers platoon guys. And, the Giants really are. So maybe that was just a Farhan Zaidi thing, huh?
Well, the Dodgers have just found a way to get star player after star player, and all of a sudden you look up and that lineup is an all-star team. So, you just kind of throw in Trey Turner at the trade deadline. I honestly can't believe, as good as that team was already, you just add Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. It's pretty ridiculous. Trey Turner I would say like kind of underrated even. He's, for me, one of the very, very best players in the game, and he just gets added to a team that was already on paper maybe a 110-win team. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. Trey Turner is fun to watch. You know, he can be a little infuriating at the plate sometimes. It's kind of funny. He led the led the majors in batting average despite having like very little plate discipline. You know, it's really weird, but he puts the bat on the ball. He hit really well with 2 strikes this year, and so which was good because he gets into 2 strike counts a lot. But you know, he gets the bat to the ball, and he's got the speed to make things happen, even if he doesn't hit the ball hard. And then once he is on the bases, you know, he can be a game changer. So yeah, that one I would have been excited to get Scherzer either way, but I was at least as excited about Trey Turner as I was about Max Scherzer.
Jeff, can we talk a little bit about the umpire for tonight and how that might affect things as well? Doug Eddings behind the plate, and I'm honestly starting to think about it now, just kind of looking at past Corey Knebel starts and the pitches he kind of uses. Maybe that plays into it a little bit too, and how he can get some of those breaking balls maybe off the plate that Webb might get as well, because, you know, it's going to be both ways all game. So, you know, maybe that's some of the thinking because of how Julio, let me get words out, how Julio attacks the zone as opposed to how some other guys pitch. So maybe
it's possible. I'd be surprised if the Dodgers actually took that into account very much as far as this opener strategy. I think they're very aware of who's going to be umpiring, and you know, all you can really hope for is that he's equally bad for both teams. Unfortunately, that's all you can hope for with Doug Eddings. You know, he did have one good game this year, so I guess we could hope that he has a second good game of the season. But I don't think that the Knebel move I would guess it had zero to do with Doug Eddings, and if anything, it was a very small consideration. But you know, overall, the game plan, it's got to be really hard to game plan knowing that you have a bad umpire coming in, an umpire with a huge strike zone, because both of these teams, if I remember right, I think the Giants and Dodgers are 1 and 2 in the majors this year at not chasing pitches out of the strike zone. And so having an umpire who calls a lot of pitches outside of the strike zone, it messes with both teams' game plans, because both of these teams, their success is built on don't chase pitches. Did I sound close to right on that, Ben?
100%. I said the exact same thing on my show today. We are in complete agreement. Like, you and I could shake hands, sign a treaty. We don't want the umpires to be dictating how this game goes. Like, because it's hardly ever equal. It usually benefits somebody more than somebody else. And, you know, when it benefits you, it's hard to like get mad about it. But at the same time, we just agree, can we not have this happen? And unfortunately, it probably will be a factor tonight. And yeah, both teams don't chase outside the strike zone. And so if all of a sudden you're getting pitches out of the zone called, it throws them off their game, and maybe they start chasing more than they normally would. And I think I was listening to your podcast with I'm forgetting his name, but the one that came out today,
Mark Simon.
Yeah, and talking about how in game 1, maybe Webb getting some calls forced the Dodgers to start swinging outside the strike zone, and we did definitely see unorthodox chasing by the Dodgers in game 1. And then I would say in game 3, Max Scherzer was getting some ridiculous calls outside the strike zone, and it was forcing the Giants to start chasing pitches outside the zone, which is very unorthodox for them. So I hate that. I just hate that these two teams that have earned their way to 109 wins suddenly maybe have to change the way they play because you have someone doing their job poorly behind the plate. But that's the way it is, and it very well could influence the way the game goes tonight.
Yeah, like I said on Twitter, I said I really want the baseball played by the baseball players to be the story of tonight's baseball game. And unfortunately, I can already feel Doug Eddings saying, "Not so fast, Fatso," you know. And first of all, it's rude of Doug Eddings to call me Fatso, although it's also maybe the most accurate he's been all year. But I mean, he's been a bad umpire for so long. And this is 5 straight years that he has umpired in either the postseason or the All-Star game. despite being probably literally the worst umpire in baseball. Like, definitely the worst as far as calling pitches out of the strike zone strikes. He's not, I think overall he's like 13th worst on overall accuracy. But that's because he just calls everything a strike. And so, some pitches are strikes. And so, a broken clock is right twice a day or whatever they say. But yeah, it's frustrating that you and I both felt the need to do a podcast about the home plate umpire for tonight's game in preparation for the game. Like, seems like MLB could figure out, okay, let's have the bad umpires not work in October, just like we don't make the Padres work in October because they're bad. Like the bad players don't get to play in October. Why do the bad umpires get to umpire in October? I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. I've never understood it. I don't know what the explanation is. Seems like the umpires have too much power in the relationship they have with MLB because it's always been this way. It's like you look up and all of a sudden you've got, Angel Hernandez is in this umpiring crew? How is that possible? Joe West is calling the wild card game? How is that possible? But
this is 2 straight years the Dodgers in the NLDS had a crew with Angel Hernandez, and Angel Hernandez wasn't the worst umpire on the crew. In fact, both years he's been at most 3rd worst on the crew. And it's like when you have Angel Hernandez and 2 guys worse than him on a postseason crew, it's like it's one of those things where sometimes it takes more effort to get every question wrong than to get every question right. Like it seems like they would have to be saying, okay, we are going to base our postseason criteria on who sucks. And unfortunately, they base it on seniority, which is most of the time the same thing. Okay, let's take the old guys who are out of shape, can't get in position to make the calls anymore, and are set in their ways. Let's have them be the umpires in the postseason. Unions do a lot of good in the world. And I feel like the Major League Umpires Union exists only to give anti-union people ammunition for their arguments, because whatever the relationship is between Major League Baseball and the Umpires Union, that's why guys like Angel Hernandez and Doug Eddings and Ted Barrett and Bill Miller keep getting these postseason assignments, because they're old and they've been around a long time.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that before the series started, we're like, oh, Angel Hernandez is on this crew, and it's Carlos Torres, right? The first game. Yeah, Carlos Torres is on this crew. Oh man, and then Doug Eddings like, oh no, hold my beer, hold on, and they got me too. It's like, dude, how did you come up with who's on this? Like 3 of the worst umpires. It's like MLB wants chaos. It's like they want chaos. It's like they want every game to just be people just stressing all the time over everything, because that's what's going to happen. I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Yep. Yeah, I get my human element from the players. I don't need it from the umpires. Give me robot umps now.
2 of the best teams in the postseason are getting the worst umpires. Even if you have to put these crappy umpires on crews,
don't put them on the series between the 2 best teams in baseball. The Dodgers and Giants deserve the best umpires. Bottom line. West Coast bias, I don't care. They were the 2 best teams in baseball. They deserve the best umpiring crew for this series. They deserved a 7-game series. That wasn't possible, but they at least deserve good umpires.
No, Joe, that's absolute facts, dude. That's like why? Like, who decided to give the 2 best teams in baseball the worst umpiring crew and let the Brewers and Braves, 2 teams that probably shouldn't even? I mean, really? They get a good umpiring crew? Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't.
It would be so nice and refreshing if it was earned. If umpires got to the postseason, like you said, Jeff, based on merit, like the guys who had the best, most consistent zones got rewarded by getting to work in the playoffs, regardless of seniority. But I'm getting some feedback here. I don't know if you can hear that.
Let's just sort this by how good are these umpires? How often do they make the calls correctly? And okay, John Lipka, you're the best umpire in baseball. Which series do you want to be crew chief on? All right, Pat Hobart, you're second best. You get the next pick. Alan Porter, you're next. Trip Gibson, you're next. And just go down and do that. And guess what? Doug Eddings would not be on an umpiring crew if it was based on merit. He wouldn't be umpiring right field. He wouldn't be doing anything. He would be at home on vacation with Manny Machado, where he belongs.
And don't they have a Twitter account that literally has the umpire scorecards? Like, can't you just go off of that and just say, all right, those are the best?
That's literally what I'm doing right now. I just sorted by accuracy on umpscorecards.com. Yeah, this data is all here. This data, the guy who runs Ump Scorecards gets it from MLB. This is their data. And, when I go through I sort by accuracy, and then let me move my phone. Let's see where I get to find Doug Eddings. Doug Eddings is on the last page.
33rd or 33 or 34, something like that.
And this has everybody, including guys who only umpired one game. So yeah, it's got everybody, but so there's 99 people on this page, and he is 76, 77, 8, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87th out of 99.
Oh my freaking God, man.
Yep, two spots above him, Ted Barrett, the umpire of Game 3.
Oh goodness! So I should just start the liquor now, right? So I should just start the alcohol now, so I feel nothing by game time, right?
I assumed living in Fresno that you had already started drinking.
Oh, I haven't. Surprisingly, yet. Usually I have my first drink on game days by noon, but I haven't yet. But I'm about to.
I've emptied my water bottle 3 times today. So.
Yeah. How many Diet Cokes have you drank today?
None. Not yet. I haven't left the house yet today, so I'll probably go get a Diet Coke here pretty soon.
Actually, the first the 2 games they won, the drink of choice that I had was Jim Beam Vanilla. So I don't have any in the house right now, so I'm gonna have to go to the store and grab some.
Your mission is clear, Chase.
My mission is clear. Kershaw jersey, Jim Beam Vanilla in hand, game on the TV. I'm ready.
Well, good.
We'll be good. We'll be good. It's gonna be a good game, but obviously I hope the Dodgers come out on top. Obviously.
Yeah. Ben, are you actually in the Bay Area? Are you going to the game tonight?
Yeah. That's to be determined. The ticket prices are outrageous, and so I've been checking, and they're still outrageous. So I'm kind of waiting.
Is it true that tickets are like $400 for the nosebleed seats tonight? Like
more like $300, but yeah, standing room only, $300, like pretty.
Yeah, I was looking at tickets because I was supposed to be in San Francisco right now. I ended up not going on the trip because my back is acting up, but my wife and sons are there. And so while they were flying there yesterday, I'm like, I'm just going to look and see. And I looked on StubHub and saw, cheapest ticket's $300, but then I got a phone call from my season ticket rep for the Dodgers. And she said, hey, I heard you're thinking about looking for tickets for tomorrow night's game. And I said, yeah, I'm trying to see if I can get my wife and sons there without paying $1 gazillion. And she said, well, you're in luck. So my wife and sons are going tonight, got tickets through the Dodgers for $120 each. That tickets that look it on StubHub would have cost $700 each. So.
Wow. Through the Dodgers. That's odd. Well, I guess it makes sense, right? Because they want, I guess they want Dodgers fans to show up.
Yeah.
There.
So they had blocks of these tickets that, I don't know how that works with, arranging it between the Dodgers and the Giants, but they had that. So she called me at 4:47 PM yesterday Pacific time. And she said, okay, I need to know by 5:00 if you want these. And my wife is on a flight. So I'm like, I can't even ask my wife what she thinks, So I had to use my judgment. And so I'm like, okay, I'll take them. So I filled out the form and sent it back to my season ticket rep right at 5:00. I said, I'll take 3 tickets. And I sent my wife a text. I said, I hope I made the right decision. And my sons are so excited. So I definitely made the right decision, even though my wife and sons, none of them have ever been to a Dodger game without me before. So it's going to be weird for all of us, but hopefully they'll bring some good luck. Well, I hope you get there, Ben. It's either way, it's going to be a fun atmosphere, So.
It really is, and that's part of it for me. Is like just to try to justify spending so much money and then potentially having your heart broken. So you pay all this money and then you go home like super disappointed. But I've been at some great games. I've been at like NLCS Game 7. I was at the Travis Ishikawa walk-off home run to win the pennant against the Cardinals. Been to World Series games, so it's always fun to be there, kind of no matter what happens. And yeah, I heard the atmosphere in Game 1 at least was just absolutely electric, kind of stuff that we haven't seen there for maybe close to 10 years. So I would anticipate tonight might be even better in terms of the atmosphere.
Yeah, in some ways, obviously the Giants have won 3 World Series in the last decade or whatever. But in some ways, when you factor in the opponent, this is one of the biggest games that Oracle Park, well, definitely the biggest game Oracle Park has ever seen. But even under previous names, it's one of the biggest games that this stadium's ever seen, probably.
Definitely. I would
Justin
definitely
wants
agree.
to heckle you about something real quick. You're on mute, Justin. There you go.
Oh, I'm here. I'm trying to be courteous. I don't know who was going through the car wash earlier, but I'm trying to make sure there's no feedback. So, Ben, I was going to say, no matter what happens, there's no way it can be worse than what we experienced Game 7, 2017 of the World Series. The Dodgers were down 5 runs before the seats even got warm, and that was not a cheap ticket. So I can't imagine it going, I mean, I'm going to love it if the Dodgers could put up 5 in less than 2 innings, but I don't see that happening. I see it being a tighter game.
Yeah, that one was tough. I remember that game, and the Dodgers were out of it from the first pitch. And yeah, I mean, when you spend all that money and that's the type of game you get, you got to feel like you got ripped off, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't give discounts for friends and family for the World Series when I'm selling my season tickets. And my brother is still angry at me that he paid me $1,200 to watch the Dodgers lose Game 7 of the World Series.
Exactly.
I told him that's what he gets for being an idiot, But yeah, strangers saw me cry that night. I had to watch freaking Carlos Correa and his illegitimate engagement happen right there on the field, That's and it only got worse a couple years later when we found out everything else. So, but all right, well, like I said, I've been through my water bottle a few times today, so I got to go. Do things that happen after you drink a bunch of water. So this was fun. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a game to remember. I'm hoping that it's stress-free. Hopefully the Dodgers can jump on Logan Webb and make Ben cry early so he can feel what it's like to be down early in a winner go-home game like we did in 2017. And, the Dodgers can just give us a nice, relaxing, a 3-hour celebration, up early, stay up, and just a relaxing win. But unfortunately, I suspect it's going to be closer than that.
I just hope for a good game, and the umpires are not the story. That's what I hope.
I definitely agree with you on the second part. I think good games are overrated. I want a Dodgers win. Don't care if it's a good game or not.
Especially on the road.
And but yeah, I guess I appreciate baseball. Joe, did you have one last thing to say?
It's going to boil down to if the Dodgers can score runs. When they score runs in the postseason, they win. They've been shut out on every loss.
Yeah, the Giants have only scored 9 runs in this series. So, we know it's going to be low scoring on one side. So
teams that have out-homered their opponent are undefeated in the postseason in general, not just in this series, but in general. And so for me, it's going to be who hits the ball out of the park tonight.
Yep.
Sure wish we had Max Muncy.
Yeah. Sure wish we had Brandon Belt.
Yeah, but Muncy's been a pretty good against the Giants, especially in San Francisco. But
and Muncy didn't need steroids like Brandon Belt did.
Yeah. I'm hoping I'm listening to a positive podcast on the Dodgers side tomorrow, Jeff. No offense, Ben.
Yeah. One of us is going to be crying on the podcast tomorrow, and I hope it's you, Ben. All right. I guess we all agree then.
All right.
Hey, thanks for joining me, guys. This was fun,
All right, guys.
and we'll do it again soon.